Ever get that feeling?
Yeah.
Like a little battle going on inside?
Yeah.
It could be anything, like trying to pry yourself away from your phone,
Oh, no.
or resisting that extra cookie.
Oh,
Or maybe, and I know I'm guilty of this one, just hitting snooze on the alarm.
yeah.
Again,
Definitely been there.
it's all about discipline and self-control, right?
Absolutely. Those daily struggles we all face.
And it's exactly what we're diving into today.
Yeah, we're going to go deep, trying to figure out what's really going on in those moments and maybe even, come up with some ways to help us win those little battles.
For this deep dive, we found a pretty cool resource, an episode from the English Leap podcast.
Ah, interesting.
Now, it's meant for people learning English, right? Hosted by Jennifer and Daniel. But the thing is, they got into some really deep stuff about discipline and self-control. And I think it applies to all of us, no matter what language we speak.
It's kind of fascinating how a conversation about learning English can lead to these universal insights, huh?
So we're going to be pulling out the most helpful bits from their conversation and, seeing how they can apply to you.
Love that. So like a practical guide to self-mastery extracted from an English lesson.
Exactly. Let's start with the basics, though. How do they define discipline and self-control?
Well, Daniel, he put it pretty simply. Discipline is like just doing what you got to do, even when you really don't want to.
Makes sense.
You know, that classic example, getting out of a warm, cozy bed on a freezing morning. You got to do it, even if every fiber of your being is telling you to stay put.
Oh, I feel that one in my soul. Can't tell you how many times I've hit snooze.
We've all been there. But Jennifer, she actually shared a little trick. She puts her alarm clock across the room.
Oh, smart. Forces you to actually get up.
Yeah, makes that initial act of discipline unavoidable.
Makes it harder to cheat. I like it.
Right. Now, self-control, Daniel saw it as resisting the stuff you know isn't good for you.
Yeah, like resisting temptation.
Exactly. He used the example of turning down an extra slice of pizza. You know you're trying to eat healthier, but that pizza is calling your name.
It always is. And it's not just pizza, right? It could be scrolling through social media when you have a deadline, or binge watching just one more episode when you need to sleep.
Oh, yeah. So many temptations. Digital, culinary, you name it. So pretty straightforward definitions, right?
Yeah, definitely. But now comes the hard part. How do we actually get better at these things?
Well, Jennifer and Daniel, they had some really cool ideas. One big one was this. Start small. Celebrate the little wins.
Okay, like baby steps.
Yeah, exactly. Remember Jennifer's alarm clock trick? That's a perfect example. It wasn't a huge life overhaul, just a tiny change to make her goal a little bit easier.
I like that. Seems manageable.
Right. And Daniel, he wanted to cut back on caffeine. So sometimes he'd just walk past his usual coffee shop, not even trying to quit entirely, just resisting that temptation now and then.
It's almost like those small acts of resistance are like training your self-control muscles.
Exactly. And that leads right into another point they made, the power of habits.
Oh, habits. The things we do without thinking. Good and bad.
Yeah, Daniel actually called them shortcuts for the brain. Once something's a habit, it's like your brain doesn't have to work as hard to do it.
Saves mental energy for other things.
Right. They told a story about Daniel's friend who wanted to read more, but instead of trying to read a whole book every week, he just started carrying a book in his car.
Interesting.
And whenever he was waiting in the school pickup line, he'd read for a few minutes.
So he tied it to an existing habit.
Exactly. It became part of his routine, and eventually reading became a habit without him even realizing it.
I love that. Jennifer had a great point about starting small with new habits, too.
Yeah, she said it's like, imagine you want to start jogging. Don't try to run a marathon on your first day. Just do a short, easy jog.
Right. Don't go from 0 to 60.
Makes it less intimidating, more likely you'll stick with it. Like saving money.
Good point.
Starting with a small amount that you barely notice, but over time, it adds up.
So build good habits slowly and steadily. They also talked about delayed gratification, didn't they?
Oh, that's a big one. Choosing a bigger reward later over something small right now.
Patience is a virtue, huh?
Daniel's example was saving up for a vacation instead of spending that money on a new gadget right away.
That's tough, especially with all the shiny new things coming out all the time.
For sure. But it's about focusing on the long-term satisfaction.
Jennifer talked about skipping nights out with friends in college to save up for a spring break trip.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. Sacrificing immediate fun for a bigger experience later on.
Makes you wonder about the marshmallow test, right?
Oh, yeah. The kids who could resist the marshmallow ended up doing better later in life.
Interesting.
Shows how that ability to delay gratification can be a sign of, future success. And it's not just about big things like vacations or careers.
Yeah.
It applies to everyday choices, too. Choosing a healthy snack over a sugary treat when you're trying to get in shape. Those little choices add up. So we've got discipline, self-control, building habits, delayed gratification. Sounds good. But is it really that easy? Well, not exactly. Jennifer and Daniel talked about some roadblocks too, and one of the biggest ones, stress.
Ah, stress.
Yeah.
The ultimate saboteur.
Right. When we're stressed, we tend to crave comfort. And sometimes that comfort comes in the form of unhealthy habits.
Like stress eating. Been there.
Yeah, or binge watching TV, procrastinating on work. Those things that provide temporary relief but ultimately don't help us in the long run.
It's like our brain's looking for a quick fix.
Exactly. And Jennifer, she talked about her experience during tax season, that feeling of being completely overwhelmed and reaching for snacks as a coping mechanism.
Makes you realize that discipline isn't just about willpower, it's also about managing stress.
Absolutely. If you can find healthier ways to deal with stress, like going for a walk or practicing mindfulness, you'll be less likely to fall back on those bad habits.
So it sounds like building discipline is a multifaceted challenge. But what practical tips do they give for actually improving it?
Well, they circled back to the start small idea again. Remember Daniel's analogy?
The gym.
Exactly. You wouldn't try to lift a crazy amount of weight on your first day at the gym, right? You build up to it gradually.
Makes sense. Don't try to become a disciplined superhero overnight.
Right. Start with something small and manageable, like waking up 10 minutes earlier each day.
Okay, I can do that. What else?
Well, Jennifer had this cool concept called habit stacking.
Habit stacking. That sounds interesting.
It's basically attaching a new habit you want to build to an existing habit you already have.
Oh, I get it. Like a 2-for-1 deal.
Exactly. She gave the example of doing stretches while her coffee's brewing. She's already making coffee every morning, so she just added those stretches to her routine.
Sneaky, but brilliant.
Right. And Daniel, he said he started reading for 10 minutes right after lunch every day.
So he just plug it into his existing schedule.
Yeah. Makes it so much easier to stick with it. And they even challenge their listeners to think about their own routines.
Yeah, see where they can sneak in some good habits.
Right. What existing habits could you stack a new habit onto?
That's a great question to ask ourselves. They also talked about motivation versus willpower, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, that was a good one. Motivation, they said, is like that initial spark of excitement.
Ah, like New Year's resolution energy.
Exactly. But willpower, that's what keeps you going when the motivation fades.
Because we all know those New Year's resolutions don't always last.
And Daniel made a really important point. Willpower isn't unlimited. It's like a muscle that can get tired.
So don't try to tackle all the hard stuff at once.
Right. Do those challenging tasks early in the day when you've got more willpower.
Smart. I know I'm useless after dinner.
Oh, yeah, me too. Jennifer also mentioned mini rewards, like little treats to reinforce good behavior.
Bribery. But for yourself.
Exactly. She said she'd give herself a piece of dark chocolate after finishing a tough task.
Sounds like a good deal to me.
Right. A little bit of positive reinforcement can go a long way. And finally, they stress the importance of mindfulness.
Mindfulness. Being present in the moment.
Yeah, paying attention to your habits, your feelings, your triggers.
It's like being a detective of your own behavior.
Exactly. Jennifer talked about her experience with stress eating. By becoming more aware of when and why she was reaching for snacks, she could start to make different choices.
It's about understanding your patterns.
Right. Like if you know you get distracted by social media when you're tired, you might decide to take a nap before doing important work.
Plan ahead, be strategic. So much of this comes down to knowing yourself.
Absolutely. And then their last point, this was important. Balance discipline with flexibility.
So it's not about being a robot.
Exactly. Jennifer said she still enjoys pizza with friends sometimes.
Good. Because pizza is delicious.
Exactly. It's about making progress, not being perfect.
So it's okay to have slip-ups, as long as you get back on track.
Daniel had a good analogy. Imagine you're driving and you hit traffic. You wouldn't just sit there and get frustrated, right? You'd take a detour.
You got to adapt.
Exactly. Life throws you curveballs. You got to be able to adjust your plans and keep moving forward.
So it sounds like Jennifer and Daniel, even though they were focused on teaching English, gave us a really great blueprint for building discipline and self-control.
Absolutely. They broke it down in a way that anyone can understand. And they showed how it's not about some magical ability.
It's about small steps, building good habits, being aware of your triggers, and not beating yourself up when you slip up.
Right. Progress over perfection. It's a journey, not a destination.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a little challenge.
Oh.
Think about one area of your life where you'd like a little more discipline. It could be anything.
Yeah, big or small.
And then ask yourself, What's one tiny, almost ridiculously easy step you could take right now?
That's it. One small step. But it could be the start of something amazing.
We hope this deep dive has given you some inspiration and practical ideas for building your own discipline and self-control. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure diving in with you.